addition in. And then what if the township doesn't agree to spend the money on the fire hall? Just in case we don't get the grant money, then are we out that money then?
If the grant money doesn't come in, then it just goes through the voters thing. We're out that money for the engineering.
But
that's all.
The engineering money is kind of put in a bank, and they'll bring it back up.
Project cost.
Yeah, right. So it's not a lost effort here.
So if we do go back, and then let's say that the township doesn't want, if we don't get the grant money, the township doesn't approve the building as big as it is, or something or other, the money goes into a bank.
We're putting the cart in front of the horse. The first thing we have to do is get this engineered thing according to the grants plan that they have, what they're having. Mark said.
But the program guidance
No,
document
don't
hold on.
No.
We're just going back and forth on the same basic thing here. We got some people out here that would like to ask a few questions. There's somebody in the back there that raised their hand. I'll call on him here.
We've got two separate things here. Don't confuse it. Under the one grant, you can fix up your fire hall and make repairs to it. That's separate. That's the $100,000 thing. That's the one Warren was talking about. Number two, the other thing is when you're applying for a grant for a new building, people that are going over your grant don't like it if you're already in process of building it. So if you've already been started, they won't give it to you. But in order to give it to you, you have to have a plan in place. So what Mark is trying to do, what you're trying to do is get a plan in place so that you can say, we would like to build this building, here's what our plan is. We've not built it yet. Okay, those are two separate things. Now, if you decide to spend the money for the architect, you do lose the $66,000 if you don't build the building temporarily. If you go back 2 years from now and then build the building, you get that 66 credited, and they have to finish the project for you, unless you build a different kind of building. That's all. It's not any harder than that. Simple. The other thing is the town boards for things that are having to do with safety. Water systems, sewer systems, roads, safety items that keep people alive or dead can be voted on and run and put on levies by the town board. The hell with what the township thinks. Because this is not a town meeting, this is a town board meeting. We get to watch you do the thing, and if we don't like it, we vote you out. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Marty. There's a gentleman in the back row there. Do you want to still say something?
Yeah, I got a question. I understand that, we went forward to get bids on this fire hall. But I guess I got questions that, just hearing you just tonight now, we've got sleeping quarters in the fire hall. How many people are we looking at doing something like that for?
That's going to be state law. That's going to be federal law.
Right. That we have to have, it's one of the requirements for
outline for the grant. To be eligible for the grant,
that's less than 2 years away.
Okay, well, I didn't understand that. On a voluntary fire department,
no, it's going to have to be manned 24/7.
So in other words, we'll have a fire chief,
right,
and a crew there?
It has to be 24/7 capable.
Well, we're not going to understand that. I'm just asking that. That's all, to get more information.
Mark, go ahead and explain that out.
I understand that if you have to have that part of it to get the money for the grant, then so be it. But I didn't understand that part from before, that was part of it.
We didn't know that before. When at the annual meeting, before the annual meeting, there was no printed documentation as to what this was going to flesh out to be as a grant. Before this hit the national news, I got word of this through people that don't want to be identified, and if I do identify, then my source of information dries up. All right? So I brought it to the board, and actually had plans to bring it to the board. The night before the board meeting, it actually broke on the national news. Again, there was no written documentation. When we moved ahead with this, when the vote went at the annual meeting, there was zero written documentation as to what this grant was going to be. Since that time, and the document I've got is April 24th. That's very fresh, that this was a printed document. This is not a final document.
Right, but the
It's
final
still-
won't be until July or?
No. The last date I heard is mid-May for a final document to come down.
So we really don't know exactly what the specs are yet then?
No.
So
We
we're
have a
blue
very-
skying things right now then?
We've got a very good idea what it's going to be. Understand, when I use Glenn Bergstrand's name on this, he has written, I'm not going to put a number to it, a lot of grants. He has consulted on the construction of at least 18 fire halls as a consultant. He knows the wording, he knows what's coming in. He is in the legislative branch for the State Fire Marshal's Office, following law, following upcoming law, following legislation through the channels. We do have a very good handle on what's coming before it gets here.
But we still don't know the story until it does happen.
No.
And then at that point, then we can make a educated assumption of what we're gonna do then, right?
Very much so.
But why are we
point
doing it before then?
Because by the time that document comes out, they are going to have probably a 15 to 30-day window to apply for the grant. And in that, you have to have.
I understand that part. You would meet once a month, you can't do it in that time frame.
Well, an architect can't build you a plan in that time.
Is there,
Go ahead, Pat.
A couple quick. One, how much money is going to be actually in these grants statewide?
It isn't given statewide. There's a total of $210 million nationwide.
so far.
So far, no. So we don't know if it's,
This is not going to be
Next one,
issued per state.
okay.
This is come down the same way as the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. This is what we believe now. When Assistance to Firefighters Grant goes in, it's electronically filed to Washington, D.C. It gets a first overview through a computer, and that's on the grant application. That's your basic statistical reporting. If you have any mistakes in there, it kicks it out. You are automatically not eligible for the grant. From there, it goes into the narrative reading. There's a first narrative reading. 50% of those don't make it because they didn't like the narrative. If they like the narrative, it goes to the next step. And on and on and on until they narrow it down to the number of departments that are going to use up the total funding available.
This is basically for Noel. And the reason I'm asking this question is because of what Mark had said about some of these departments have plans that are not ready. If we, well, apparently we already negotiated with the Stanius and we're on the hook for the $66,000 right now.
That is correct.
But 2 years from now, say the grant money doesn't come through, but another grant opportunity opens up. 2 years from now, and there are different specifications, or is it going to cost us more, or is this $66,000 going to cover any revisions that may come up in the future? Because I wouldn't want to end up in the same position that Mark has just described that some other departments are in, where they've had plans sitting on the table for 5 or 6 years, and now they aren't going to be up to code or anything. Are they going to pick that up or not, or don't you know?
Okay, currently it's not in the contract to revise documents for a second or third even submission to a different agency or to the same agency with a different set of rules. But it's reasonable, I think, if you have a total design that meets one set of federal specifications which are current, and 2 years from now you would know what